Good evening, everybody, and welcome, friends new and old. And I'll wait here. It's like being a teacher in class. Class, settle down, settle down. We've got a very important guest tonight. We've got a special guest tonight who I'll get to in just a moment. First, the formalities. Welcome, friends, new and old. It's good to see some new faces here, but this is the 7th edition of the Boat Co. Talk Show. This is what we call, thank you, it's a monthly, somewhat monthly exploration of the diverse, creative, and entrepreneurial talent that resides right here in our backyard. It's a show where I aim to tell the stories behind the stories and get to the heart of the personal experiences behind the brands, the movement, and the personalities of all the personalities and all the stories that we've heard of and in some cases met in person. The show's goal is to contribute to a better world, starting with our own community by inspiring local future leaders, innovators, and influencers with stories of positivity, perseverance, and hard work. And then ultimately, we hope that people leave here with some real life lessons from some of these great guests we've got. So I'm Derek Sabori. I'm your host. And we're here again at this amazing dining and cocktail experience called the Boathouse Collective. So if you're here for the first time, welcome. I hope you'll come back and keep coming because we like to say this is where you'll find some of the finest food, drink, people, and entertainment and experiences this side of Titusville. Okay? I'd like to thank Clay Peterson and the entire Boathouse family for once again hosting us and the Boat Co. Talk Show. It's a great opportunity, so big hand to the house. So before we get started, and before I introduce our esteemed guests, I'm going to set the tone with just a short little video to give probably a little backdrop that probably nobody really needs, but what the heck.
It's a beat-up old building that was cheap to rent. They got named the Froghouse because of a friend of ours named Frog that was filthy dirty. This building was filthy dirty when he moved in, so he got called. Someone said, let's just call it Frog's House, Froghouse. The attitude of the guys behind the counter, first off, when I grew up, I'd go in surf shops and there was some idiot behind the counter that was a cool surfer guy, and he treated me like I was an idiot because I was in there paying retail for everything. And I just told myself, no one should ever feel this way when they walk in a shop. So when I get an employee in this shop, one of the first things I tell them and teach them is that the customer here is way more important than you are. I can get a new employee every single day if I need one. But I lose a customer, I can never get them back again. We're kind of unique in that we're just a surf shop and not a clothing store. Most surf shops nowadays are clothing stores, and we don't sell clothing much. We just sell surfboards and wetsuits. I love people, just naturally. Intimacy that we have and caring for each other goes to the customers that come in here too. I think we've lost a lot of the soul and a lot of the caring and the loving that was in it as a younger day. But then at the same time, it's still surfing. It's still amazing. In the industry, sometimes they get more attention than I do because they're buying and selling more product. But I will tell you this, per square foot store, nobody beats us. We can also try to have a personal interaction with our customers that they can't get at those big outfits. This place kind of looks like a dump. I always figure if you go to a dump, you ought to save a little bit of money. When there's no problems, then I go surfing almost every single day. And I walk across the street. As long as I can still be surfing most every day, then this business will stay just like it is with me running it and enjoying it every single day. And it'll break my heart someday if this place did shut down and disappear. But at the same time, what a love affair I've had for all these years.
All right. So our guest tonight likely needs little introduction for a couple of reasons. One, while he's the man behind one of the most iconic surf shops there is, he's also the face of it. I think we can all agree with that. He's the greeter, the head of customer service and finance, marketing, and probably most importantly, the head of fun. He's been described as a man with, quote, quick wit and a gentle soul, and, quote, the energy of a 20-year-old, and he has no filter at all. But inside, he has the biggest heart and sincerely cares and loves all the people that work for him. He's a family man, a surfer, a friend to many, a local legend. Ladies and gentlemen, TK Brimer.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Hey, thank you very much. Whoa, is this working correctly? I'm being really quiet and it sounds really loud. Hey, listen, it's nice to see all these faces that I recognize out here today. It kind of feels like a birthday party. But it probably has a better look of maybe a wake or something, which is way... I hope to see every one of your faces when I'm laying in a coffin up here in the near, not too near future, I hope.
Kid.
But every one of you, thank you for coming here tonight. I'll try not to disappoint you. That's my only worry. People have been asking me, TK, are you nervous? Are you worried? No, because I know the answers to every question that's going to be answered up here. But my only worry is that you guys aren't entertained, so I'll try my best to entertain you. Thank you very much.
Let's have some fun. So TK, I couldn't help but notice we've got some lovely wine glasses here. We've got a Shiraz, a Shiraz.
Well, no, this is actually a Shiraz because it's from the Barbarossa Valley in Australia. And in Australia, it's called a Shiraz. In the United States and California, it's called a Shiraz. But it's the exact same grape. But
what about the cork? Do we do anything with the cork?
I just look at the cork and make sure the cork's not leaking. If you smell it, it smells like a cork. The
pork?
Cork smells like cork.
Pork. I thought you said pork.
All you want to do is take a look at that cork and make sure there's not a leak up the side, which would indicate that maybe the wine was bad. But that cork is fine.
Okay.
That cork is fine.
So this might be something people may not have known about you. I'll wait for it.
Go ahead. You don't have to wait.
No, that's good. Okay. This may be something that thank you. That people may not know about you, but you're a wine connoisseur.
Well, I'm not sure.
Is this a cost plus wine or a Trader Joe's wine?
Well, this is actually a single vineyard. A Shiraz, Barbarossa Valley, which we have visited the Barbarossa Valley, my family and I. And the reason I am into wine and enjoy it so much these days is maybe 12, 15 years ago, I was at a garage sale. By the way, I love to go sailing. That's garage sailing. And I picked up for $3 The World of Wine, 8 cassette tapes for $3 about wine. And I've always been at nice restaurants at places like this, and they show me the wine list, and I hold it sideways or upside down, and I have no idea what I'm looking at. And it's a moment of embarrassment because I'm uneducated, and I feel threatened by the wine salesman guy or the sommelier, as it is. And so for $3, I bought this set of wine tapes, and I drove around them. And you see my nice car out there, and it's got a cassette player in it. And I drove around for weeks and months and listened to these wine tapes over and over. And then I started tasting bottles of wine and relating to the long finish and relating to the complexity and relating to tasting the tannins. And I'm not sure if I can actually taste bruises in the fruit, but I can certainly taste a lot of this wine. And the $3 bottle of wine, $3 I spent on the tapes has probably cost me $30,000 over the last 20 years, 10, 15 years, because I just cannot drink a $20 bottle of wine nowadays. It's got to be nice quality. And I'm no longer threatened by the wine list in any restaurant I've been in. And I've just found something that's enjoyable. So that's why I like drinking wine.
I'm lucky enough to be up here sharing this with you. Thank you.
To your help.
Thank you. And to all your friends out there, we're Facebook living this event, so if you want to tell anybody that couldn't make it tonight, here's a toast. So I have to let you in on a little secret. One of the things I've always wanted to do with the Boat Code Talk Show is do this. You bring a bottle of wine up, maybe 2. You just talk and drink until you just can't do either of them well anymore.
Well, as we get to the end of the bottle of wine, the answers will get way more spicy,
then let's
way
dive
more
in.
exciting.
Let's dive in.
And way more embarrassing tomorrow. But who cares about tomorrow? We'll do it for tonight.
Okay, so TK, so the Froghouse has been yours now first we're going to talk shop. That's where we're going to start.
Okay.
TK, the Froghouse has been yours for 40 years, more than 40 years now, and it's been there for a good 15 years before that. But before we get too deep into that story, and I think a lot of people know that story, and what I don't necessarily want to do is dive into the things that many people know, but I want to rewind a bit because I want you to talk to us a little bit about your journey out west, right? You're a Florida kid, right?
That's right.
Okay.
I lived in Titusville, Florida, a town of 6,000 people when we moved in. At the time when I started surfing in 1962, 61 it might have been, we were up to about 10,000 people. And surfing on the East Coast was retarded developmentally than the West Coast was. I mean, the West Coast where the surf was, East Coast, it was a new sport. In my city, I remember as clear as day, as though it happened yesterday, I was sitting in the front porch of my house at 1112 Lane Avenue, which always seemed like a fake address if you gave it to the cops. They're like, what are you trying to tell me? You live at 1112 Lane Avenue? Who made that up? But I'm sitting there, and driving down the street is a convertible, and it has a red surfboard sticking out the back of it. And it drives down my street. And I look at that thing and I go, wow, you know what? That's a surfboard, and we live near the beach. We could probably be surfing, you know?
Yeah,
and
could be a surfer.
It struck a string in my heart, and it didn't take me long to realize that was belonged to Richard Alexander that lived a couple blocks down the street, and he was the first guy in our town to own a surfboard. Now, I already worked out at the beach renting blow-up rafts. My two older brothers were the two lifeguards. We had two beach lifeguards in that town, and they were the lifeguards, and a gentleman had stopped by looking for someone to run his raft rental business for him, and they volunteered me to do that. And I was thrilled to do it because I made money doing it, and I was in early junior high. I mean, it must have been the 7th grade. And when Richard Alexander showed up at the beach with his surfboard, I went in and bummed a ride on that board. And I can remember that first day, and he was trying to help shove me into a wave, and I didn't do really well, and I've never done really well since, by the way, but it was kind of struck a love in my heart.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. You fell in love though with surfing essentially as the Froghouse was being established out here about the same time period. Is that right?
Well, yeah, that's interesting that it was getting established by a guy named Frank Jensen that some of you may have met, but many of you haven't ever heard of. But it got started by a guy named Frank Jensen. Frank Jensen didn't surf. He didn't swim. He kind of liked the water, but he mostly liked surfer people. That was kind of a lighthearted group and not real serious and entertaining. Frank Jensen started the business he had a big milk wagon, an old milk wagon, delivery wagon, and he had half a dozen or so used surfboards in it, and he would park down at Blackie's and would rent those surfboards out to people. And that would go fine for a week or so, and then the city would come tell him that he needed a license to run a business, and he would run away and he would go up to the cliffs, and we'd park there for a week or two and rent the boards out. And sooner or later, city, same thing, would come tell him he needed a license, and we'd go to Seal Beach and we'd rent him out. And when he got thrown out of Seal Beach, he'd start over again in Blackie's. And he'd been doing that for the best part of a year when a building became available in West Newport. And he decided he'd get legal, get a license, and open up a surf shop. Unbeknownst to most of us, or most of you, the building's not the building we're in today. It's actually still there, and if you'll notice, it's about 2 blocks closer to the river jetty, or the river, and it's an old gas station. It still sits there today, and you've driven by it 1,000 times, and most of you have never looked. But when you go by that trailer park, the beach and sand, or whatever it's called, all the way down by the river, look at the old, it's a mustard-colored yellow gas station building. Frank opened up in there, and he was only there for a couple of months when Hosse's Speed Shop went out of business at 6908 West Coast Highway, and that's where we are today.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, but while you were working with him, but you were always entrepreneurial. You're selling these rafts, you said, right? So in 1977, you take over the shop. So what was the scene like back then? I mean,
Well,
in that little area when he moved the shop.
First of all, I started working there in '67
Okay.
because I moved from Florida to Huntington High,
Yeah.
Huntington Beach High School, for my last 3 months of high school. And while I was there, I met a guy named Charlie Ray that I wish was here tonight. He still lives in the area, and he's a good guy. And Charlie Ray said, TK, let me, I'm a team rider for the Froghouse shop down in Newport. I'll take you down there and introduce you. And he took me down there and introduced me, and I walked in the front door, and it was like an epiphany. My heart went out. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a real surf shop, like something I've always dreamt about. It's a real surf shop. And maybe this is part of the story that everybody knows, and I skip through it, or we're doing good.
Take it. Take it.
We, gosh, 2 hours is not going to be enough, is it?
We have 3, don't worry.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I walked in there and he introduced me to Frank Jensen, the owner, and a couple of the other guys that worked there. And I right away started trying to demonstrate to Frank, the owner, that I was a salesman and could be of value to him. And when a customer would walk in the front door, I would latch on to them and walk them through and talk them through. And I'd show up at the front counter with what they wanted to buy. And I'd go, hey, Frank, these guys want to buy this board, and they're going to pay $75. And you need to write them up. And he'd write them up. And after a couple of weeks of demonstrating that, he asked me one day if I wanted to work on Saturdays. I'm going, that's the only thing I've ever wanted. And I started working there as a high school senior. Now, 10 years of working there. Then I came to where my beloved wife, Linda, over here, and I were getting married, or had been married, I guess. And I went to Frank, and I went, hey, Frank, you know what? I go, I don't make enough money behind the counter here. I go, you haven't been working in here for several years, because he fell in love with actual sailing, not the garage sailing. And I had been operating that business for him for a few years, and he'd seldom even, he'd go a week or 2 weeks without even putting his head in the door. And I go, you know what, you're not that interested in this place. You need to sell me this place. And I'll pay you good money for it, and then I'll have a better income possibility for raising a family. And he wasn't interested in doing that at first, and he had no interest in it. So I started looking around for other locations, and I looked in Seal Beach, and I looked in Dana Point, and I looked around, and I had a building in Sunset Beach that I was ready to rent, and I was going to start my own surf shop. And I went to Frank and went, hey, Frank, in the next day or two, I'm signing a lease down here in Sunset Beach. You're going to lose your manager here, and I'm not going to be interested in buying this place anymore because I got to sign a 5-year lease. I'm going to be stuck down there. And then he became interested in negotiating a sale with me. And we talked about buying the place.
So you were successful. You negotiated well.
We negotiated well. Do you want to hear about that part of the negotiations? People care about that? Okay.
Yeah.
He thought that business was worth $100,000 for what we called we call it a goodwill in those days, and today they call it blue sky. That doesn't mean any of the inventory. That's just the fact that it's an operating business, and it was worth $100,000. And I didn't argue with him about it. I thought that was not unfair. And then at that point, there was about $38,000 in inventory in the shop. Now, just to keep you in perspective, today there's $530,000 in inventory in that shop. It's a whole lot more. 10 times, 14 times more inventory than there was back in those days. Maybe even more than that. So we negotiated that he would finance that $100,000. I didn't have enough money to buy give him $100,000, so he'd finance that for me for 10 years. I had enough money to buy the inventory because I had bought real estate when I was turned 21 years old. I actually bought my first piece of real estate, 2 houses on a lot up in Alabama Street, 412, 420 Alabama. They would tear down pieces of garbage, and I paid $22,500 for 2 houses on a lot, 400 block up in Huntington, 4 blocks off the water. And because I'd made that, and by the way, I sold my car so I could buy that house, and I sold my golf clubs, and I sold all my surfboards but one, and I borrowed $400 from my lovely Linda wife sitting over here that we weren't married.
Do you still owe her? Have you paid her back?
And by the way, if she gets angry, she might point out that I never paid that back. I don't think she'd let me pay it back today if I tried. I had negotiated the purchase of that shop, and then we were getting ready to sign a 10-year lease. So I was going to pay him $3,200 a month for 10 years, and then I was also paying him a lease price for 10 years. And then I told him, I said, listen, I need to have an opportunity to buy this property. And he goes, well, the property's not for sale. And I go, well, I'm not going to sign a 10-year lease, pay you a 10-year note on the property. At the end of 10 years, you throw me out on the street, and you own the place, and I don't. You start a new surf shop the next day. I go, we got to have a price. And he goes, no, I'm not selling. I go, how about $100 million? He goes, well, duh, I'd sell for $100 million. I go, okay. there's a price. We just have to negotiate. And we wheeled and dealed and wimbled and dimbled until we agreed that if I was willing to pay $450,000 for the 3 lots in a row, includes that little red house and the empty lot in the middle and the Froghouse building, that if I was silly enough to pay that much money, that he would let it go. And so we signed a lease agreement with the option to buy it for $450,000. Fast forward 10 years, at the end of 10 years of lease, the place was worth easy $758,000. 150, and he was a gentleman and went through with the deal, and that was probably more profitable to me than buying the shop. And to this very day, it's probably more profitable to me than buying the shop. The property today's got to be in the $3 million or maybe higher, realm. So that was
just to clarify, you're your own landlord.
I know I'm my own landlord.
Yeah, that's good.
If I wasn't my own, thank you,
Yeah.
thank you. I'm stoked about that. If I wasn't my own landlord, I don't think the Froghouse would exist today, because I have that amazing ability to be able to raise or lower my rent to suit the economic times. When things are rough, we can take that rent down to 0 if we need to, and the Froghouse Incorporated pays TK Brimer 0 rent. If things are flush, we can take it up to a much higher number, and the Froghouse Incorporated pays TK and Linda Brimer much higher rent.
So I get the sense that you're not just your average little small mom and pop like business owner. There's something behind you. You got some savviness to you, I think.
Well, I'm flattered that you think so.
Not only that I think so, but I said it too. I said it out loud.
Oh, there you go. There
Yeah.
you go. There's a lot of other things you can think about me too that are true. But
Uncensored.
I was blessed as a young child with some business sense.
Yep.
I think my younger sister and I may have invented the garage sale back in the late 50s or early 60s, when we'd take a mom and dad's discardable stuff and set up out on the driveway and let cars drive by and flag them down and try to sell them stuff, and they would stop sometimes and just spend some money because they were so hilariously entertained that these 2 young kids were trying to make a buck. But yeah, I've always since a very young boy, I've always been a business
had it.
guy. Yeah, a business guy.
So tell me about back then. What was so special about the Froghouse back then? Is there sort of one thing that you remember that was really that magical thing? And would you say it's the same thing today that makes the Froghouse so special?
Well, now, early on, when I first started working at the Froghouse, we only sold used boards.
Okay.
We didn't manufacture surfboards at all. We sold only used boards. There were no wetsuits. There were no T-shirts. We sold used boards. And what else would we sell? Maybe some really lame things. Maybe scented candle or something. I don't know. But it was very unprofessional, and it was unprofitable. And the only good thing about it was the people that worked there and hung out there. And we had guys like Bob Caltabiano that none of you guys have met before, but was an amazing personality working there. And just a continual stream of amazing personalities working there, and there's not been an interrupted stream to this very day. And 7 or 8 of the guys sitting out right now that work there are just as amazing personalities as we've had them. But there's been a continuity from the early days to this day of having personalities working in there. And
Hats off to the personalities out in the audience. by the way.
thank you.
You guys make that place a special place. What's the top priority at the Froghouse right now?
Well, and the top priority at the Froghouse, unlike any other business I know anywhere, almost without exception, is to enjoy the sport of surfing. That's the most important thing we do there. It's not like most all shops, the top priority is the dollars earned, the bottom line dollars. Don't get me wrong, we have to earn dollars, or I can't survive on 0 rent forever. We have to make some money, and we have to pay the electric, and we have to pay the employees, and we have to pay me a salary, and we have to make some money. But it's really not the top priority. I think the top priority in my mind is that it's a place I get to go every day and enjoy myself. It's a kind of a clubhouse, and it's pretty much a boys' club, although we love girls. We do love girls.
Somebody asked that earlier. How many women employees have you had before?
Well, through the year we've had we've had 3 or 4 women's employees. Some of them have been really successful, and some of them didn't last long. We had Jonah the Moaner comes to my mind. That was,
what was it? Say that again.
Well, her name's Jonah the Moaner. I'm not sure how she got the name.
I just wasn't sure I heard it right.
But Jonah the Moaner worked at the Froghouse right down to the last day of her medical school. And she's operating a physician now up in Beverly Hills, and, makes a gazillion dollars a year being a successful physician.
You're cranking out PhDs out of that place.
Well, we do have a few PhDs. She's an MD, but we have PhD. Danny Tang's a PhD in biology, and still comes in and works occasionally, and works full-time using his degree at the little ship factory right next door there, the whatever you call it there. What? My dad works in a ship factory.
Okay.
But, and then Bobby Caltabiano's got his PhD in English, and most of the guys that work there, Zach, all the guys, Floby here, he's got his degree in math and teaches school. Zach's got a full degree. You know what? People that don't know walk in and they think they got a bunch of idiots standing behind the counter, and I'm the only idiot. The rest of these guys are almost all real well educated and have their college degrees or are working on them, and it only makes sense that they do a great job working in there. But everybody thinks they're a bunch of dumbass surfers, and in reality, these guys are sharp.
I love that.
It's
Nice.
If you're not sharp, you won't make it in there, because it's very unorganized, and there's a whole lot of work that needs to be done. And my son sitting over here has got his master's or MBA. He came back to me one day from MBA school and went, "Hey, Dad, we studied your management techniques at school today." I go, "Oh, I have a management techniques?" And I go, "What is that?" And it's called chaos. I go, "Okay, that's a funny joke, chaos. I'm into that." He goes, "No, it's actually, we studied it, and it's a situation where nobody is definitely in charge. There's not linear diversification of who's in charge of what and what. It just has to be where each individual looks around and sees what needs to be done and will step up and take care of it." And he pointed out that not a lot of people can operate and flourish in that kind of a situation, but those that do can be really happy in that kind of situation, and I'm really happy in that. I love sitting back and watching the boys run the place. It's great. The less I do, the happier I am. I'm just lazy guy.
So I see a Harvard Business Review, a business case in the making here.
There you go.
So you're always, though, what I love though is that you're always calm and collected. And one of the times when I was there prepping as I do professionally for this show, we're having a chat and somebody comes in and says, "Hey, Fire Marshal TK, something's on fire out in the front." You said, "Well, let's go put it out."
There you go.
Was right. Most people was like, "What, fire?" And you were just like, "Well, it's just another day." Is that the typical way of handling crises at the Froghouse?
One thing I tell people that, because I've been there for 50 years, and in 50 years, it's unusual for me to have a new situation come along. I've seen just about everything, and I've seen the fire out front several times. The fire out front almost always is one of my clients threw a cigarette into the little planter, which we call the world's largest cigarette ashtray, right out in front, and it's got that bark in there, and it'll get the bark burning. And I've never seen it get real serious, so I'm not really upset about it too quickly. But when I do get a new situation that I've never had to deal with in the whole 50 years, then it's kind of exciting because it's something new. But so the final word is that, it's pretty smooth keeled all the way along.
Okay.
Although the boys that work there do realize that I have a big temper, and it's hard for it to show up. But if it shows up, I will for some of the poor sales reps, and none that are in here today, and I'm flattered that any of them have shown up here today, but if they're not towing the rope, And if they catch me on a bad day, they're liable to catch an earful.
Do we have any sales reps in the audience? I feel like we had a couple. There we go. Okay,
yeah,
all right. Just want to make sure. Hey, TK, how about the marquee that's out there?
How about the marquee that's out there?
What's
Isn't that fun?
Yeah. Who loves the marquee? The marquee is amazing.
That's an ugly sign. The city hates that sign, and they've gone through so many procedures to try to get rid of that sign.
Some of your favorite quotes up there or sayings?
Oh gosh, it's hard for me to come up with them. You know what? I work with the high school group at Edison High School called Cybex, which is a business program they do. And one of the things I do is I judge these presentations these kids make. And I was laughing this year because each presentation, they have 6 different groups make, each one of them had pictures of clever, funny signs on the Froghouse. I'm going, where do you guys get these things? And they're going, hey, there's a website that has nothing but Froghouse signs on it. I'm cracking up going, I had no idea, because I'm not a tech guy. I don't know my way around the web at all, the web net or whatever they call it.
I was going to ask that. I was going to say, like, technology has played a huge part in the development of the Froghouse, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely wrong.
Yeah, exactly. I love that you guys don't. I mean, you don't have a website. It takes you to just a wrong place, like, right?
Is that
me, or is that right?
I just feel sorry mostly for my poor wife over here. As you guys that have been there realize, we write handwritten tickets. That's how it was when I first started there, and that's how it is today. And every night, my poor saint of a wife, Linda, over here, takes that stack and writes them onto a ledger and adds them up and does the daily books, and it's tedious. And my super smart techo son goes, you know, Mother, if Dad would have a computer in there, you could do that whole job in 8 to 12 seconds. And I'm like, shut the hell up, will you? But I just love. I'm not a tech guy. I just haven't grown up in the tech world. I enjoy the contact with humans, and it drives me crazy to see people sitting at the dinner table, the family with their smartphones out, and none of them are talking to each other.
You're lucky your kids aren't growing up right now. It's like, it's crazy.
No,
it's crazy.
They would,
so, I got this. How about, speaking of humans, though, what about bad people? Do bad people ever try to steal from the Froghouse?
Oh, we're going to talk about shoplifting? Yeah, the world has bad people in there. And through the years, we've had a collection of interesting stories. You want to hear stories?
Let's give me your favorite shoplifting story.
I don't know if it's my favorite, but a top 10. A top 10. Hey, a top 10 would be, you know what? Even on my days off, and my normal days off are Wednesday, Thursday, I'll stop by the shop. And I stopped by on a Wednesday, and someone had written a $800 check from the state of Washington, and they bought a couple of surfboards. And I was impressed with the big sale, a little bit worried about a check, but this is back some years when checks were pretty common, and I didn't worry too much about it. I came by the next day, and the same people had written a $1,200 check on the same bank in Washington State, and now I'm a little bit concerned. And so I called the bank and went, hey, is this check any good? And they said, no, both of those checks are on a closed account. So I'm $2,000 down on this deal, and that's got me upset. I talked to the boys. I go, hey, who are these guys? I go, it was 2 young kids that say they're staying with their grandma, and they live in Garden Grove. Her grandma lives in Garden Grove. And I go, what were they driving? They go, it was a dark-colored pickup. And I go, oh, crap, this is a loser. Well, my wife and I had gone out to dinner. Were the kids even living at home back then? I don't remember. But we'd come back from a late dinner. It was midnight-ish or later. And we got in the house, and then I said, you know, hon, I'm going to drive to Garden Grove and look for these guys. And she's going, well, what the heck are you talking about? I go, I'm just going to go drive around Garden Grove and see if I see these guys. She goes, well, you've never seen them before. How will you know if you see them? I go, well, they got a dark truck, and it's got a Washington license plate on it.
I'll find them.
And they might have, maybe they got surfboards in the back. I don't know. And I took off alone, and I drove for 2 or 3 hours up and down streets in Garden Grove. And I had my Thomas Brothers guide out, which I still use today, to make sure I stayed in the Garden Grove, in the Garden Grove area. And 2 o'clock 3 o'clock, at least 3 o'clock in the morning. I came around a corner, and here's a dark colored pickup with Washington plates on it. And it's parked on the grass of an old house. Kind of looked like a grandma house to me. These guys are supposed to be staying with their grandma. So I go to a cell phone. I mean, not a cell phone. I go to a payphone, and I call the cops. And the guy goes, listen, can you identify these guys? I go, no, I've never seen them, but I got an employee that can identify them. And he says, did you make a police report in Newport Beach where the crime took place? I go, no, I didn't do that. And he goes, you got to do that first. I go, listen, these guys are liable to leave in the morning, and I lose them. We got to nab them tonight. And he goes, how do you know it's them? I go, I've got a license plate, and it matches the one on that truck, which is a lie. He goes, listen, you go wake up your employee that can ID these guys. Call me when you get back in town, and we'll make a run. So I call him. I go get, I think it was Bobby Tang. I go get Bobby Tang and wake him up at 3 in the morning. Hey, Bobby, you got to come help me. We go to Garden Grove. I go, okay, we're in town. And the cop met me at the address. They had like 4 cars. A couple of them went over the fence into the back. And the cop tells me, he goes, listen, you don't have a police report or anything. If they tell me just to kiss off, I got to walk away. I go, well, let's just see what happens. Well, he knocks on the door, and a grandma answers. And I'm like, yes, this is looking good. And I see him talking. I see the cop and the grandma talking, and she disappears. She comes out with the ear in each hand. Bum, 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 with these kids, and throws them out the door. And the cop puts them down. I remember the grass was really wet and really high. And throws them down in the grass, and they cuff these guys, and they took them away to jail. And I got all my stuff back, and it was used, but still it was great. But that was a good one. That was a good
Vigilantism.
But that's a top 10. There's a dozen more.
Probably about as good as they can get. So, I mean, since you're able to do your own security, you run a lean operation. And we know that you said there though too that per square foot. I mean, it's $1 million business, the Froghouse, right? So my wonder is, has anybody offered to invest? Have you ever thought of expanding? I mean, I saw your video on Instagram. Shout out to the team though. Your Instagram page and feed is amazing, by the way. If you guys haven't checked it out, so
by
good.
the way, thank you.
But I wonder, has anybody come to you wanting to buy the business? Have you thought of expanding? Have you thought of expanding to be a surf and sport, as you said in one of your videos? And have you ever thought of taking on a partner? Because I'm looking for other things to do.
Hey, first, the Instagram is primarily, it's the boys of the shop, and primarily Zach back here, who's a great talent.
Yeah, Zach.
Some real company should hire him and pay him real money to do Instagram for them, because he's a talent. But we would miss him too. But yeah, through the years, I've had people come to me and 3 or 5 different times, financiers, guys with big dollars, and go, TK, we like what you're doing here. This is nice. You need to open up a second or a third or a fourth, or even guys talk about, we'll do 18, 20 doors. You'll be multi-millionaire money running through here. You're going to make some big money with your style and my financing. We're going to blow this thing up. And I always have the same answer for them. I always say that this place run well makes me all the money I need. But this place, as it is, makes me more than I need headaches. What I don't want is 2 headache doors, 3, 5, 7, 15 doors of headaches. Oh my God. It could take all the fun out of what I do every day. And my big deal that I am so lucky is that every day when I wake up in the morning, it's almost every single day, I am thrilled to go down to work and have a good time and enjoy myself. And I don't want to mess that up for any amount of money. How much money does a guy need in this world? Not enough to ruin your enjoyment of your life. So I always send them off, and I'm glad to be little.
Nice. So after 40 years, how have things changed? How has business changed? How has the industry changed? How has the landscape changed? After so many, you've seen so many iterations, I'm sure, of the business cycle. If you had to kind of paint one thing of how it's changed.
Just a lot. Back when I started working there in the late 60s, there was no clothing aspect to the surf world. we wore blue tennis shoes. That was kind of a surfer deal. And we wore white tight jeans sometimes, and that was part of a surfer deal, you know. There was a look. And there was Dancin. We even started selling Dancin clothing in the late 60s for a little while, but we run our business so poorly it didn't work for us. But it used to be all about the sport and the spirit of surfing. And by the way, we weren't a great surf shop back in those days. The great surf shops were called Greg Knoll, or they were called Bing, or they were called, 7 or 8 big name surf outfits. We weren't a big name surf outfit. We started building small faces. Well, first Patrola surfboards and then small faces. But still, back in the early days, it was all about enjoyment of the surf. People in Orange County here, surf shops would close on Wednesday. Wednesday was a dark day in the surf industry. And every shop closed, and we never felt that we missed anything because nobody bought a surfboard somewhere else on a Wednesday. They're going to have to come back on Thursday because we were all closed. And then things became morphing into more of an industry, and people opened up that were more aggressive business people, and they had to open on Wednesdays. And if one guy opened on Wednesdays, we all had to open on Wednesdays because we're not going to lose clients on a whole day every week. And that was kind of like the crack in the dam of the surfing world, as I loved and cared for. Then the surfing world turned into the Mr. Paul Husenstam, who's a good guy, and had Newport Surf and Sport down here in Newport Beach, and coined the surf and sport name, and started the trend of selling clothing and using surfboards as a motif to sell clothing. A guy in Anaheim that never surfed a day in his life could look like a surfer by buying the clothes, and it was a money maker. There was money involved. And then he was followed by the next surf and sport, and they were followed by Jax that ran, the original Jax guy kind of ran a surf shop, and then he died and turned that business over to the new owners, and they decided even though they didn't change the name to Surf and Sport, they decided to embrace the clothing world. And the clothing industry came into this world, and big money. Not only were the retailers making big money, the clothing industry people were making big money. So there's big money to be spent on travel. There's big money to be spent, as I found by listening to the last interview you did, big money spent on doing build-outs in big stores, and hundreds of thousands of dollars in build-outs. And boy, there was a lot of money flying around, and there still is. But somewhere, to me, the sport kind of took a back seat to it a little bit. And I think that a lot of young kids don't get to enjoy what I got to enjoy as a youngster, walking into what I see as a surf shop, and where it's just all about the sport and the love of the sport and the love for the waves and interaction, and the sport itself. So by the way, I'm not without sin in this thing. I took 17 trips to Tavarua Island, mostly paid by clothing companies. Thank you, clothing companies. Thank you very much. So I got some of that too, and I took some of it. But all in all, I wish things would go back to where they were, where a surf shop was like a small building and made their own surfboards, their brand, and the people had the interaction with each other in the shop. I don't think you get the same interaction when you're walking through rounders of clothes after rounders of clothes, a half-acre sized store. That's kind of broken my heart. But you know what? It's still a wonderful sport, and the kids still go out there and catch a wave, and you catch a wave and be sitting on top of the world. That still happens. It's just changed, and these are kind of the musings of an old man that likes to tell you that things used to be better than they were. By the way, some things used to be better than they are. But it's changed that way a lot.
So, and for you held on, though, and you still continue to hold on, but in 2010, all of that, the dream that you had and the little empire that you built up almost came to a close, right? The whole story sort of almost came to an end. Is that right?
Yeah, most of the people probably realize
notice.
This is all over. You're talking about the city.
Yeah.
I was 2010. I'm chugging along, enjoying every day. Linda, I'd love to stay home and wash windows and scrub floors, but I got to go to work. It's just something I have to do. But I got a letter from the city of Newport Beach, and it said that I had to, what was the word they used? What did I have to, what was the word? Darn it, I'm embarrassed. But I had to leave. I had to leave the premises in 30 days. I had to ebate was the word. And I looked it up, and it meant get the hell out of town. And
in 30 days, you had 30 days.
30 days. I've been there for 45 years at that point or whatever. And the 30 days you got to leave town. I'm like, what the heck are you talking about? And so I went down to the city and went, hey, this looks serious. They go, well, it is. You're going to have to leave. I go, well, what's going on? And they get, TK, we perceive that we have a problem in this town, and it's sober living houses that are opening up on the beach. A guy's buying a $3 million, $4 million home on the beach, 4 bedrooms, and then he's charging some guy from Arkansas $10,000 a month to come there and get sober. And people need to get sober. It's an honorable thing. My gosh, alcohol and drug addiction, ruin lots of families and people, and I see a need for it. But they're big money makers, but they're not really good neighbors, perceived by some people not to be good neighbors. And so the city had a law where they allowed non-conforming use, it's called, and the Froghouse was operating under non-conforming use. We had been rezoned into an R2 zoning, which is a duplex type property, but they allowed non-conforming use, and as long as we stayed a surf shop and didn't try to be a bar or something, we could stay there forever. Well, they passed the law, and that's no longer the fact. Now we have to leave. So I'm going, well, what can I do? And the city attorney goes, I've looked into this and I've tried to see if there's some way we can save you guys, but if we give you any kind of a special break, then the sober living homes are going to take us to court and sue us on that, and we're going to have legal problems. The only thing you can do, as we see it, is apply for a zoning change. And I go, well, how hard is that? They go, well, a guy did one last year, and he got through it. Then I go, what it cost him? He goes, it costs about $180,000. I go, $180,000? Holy crap. And if I win, I'm just right where I am right now, the same crappy little shop here. That doesn't sound like a good idea. So it was a really low light, or low point in my career. I had trouble sleeping at night, a lot of worry going on, and wasn't sure what I was going to do. But what did happen, and you guys have all seen the old black and white movie, It's a Wonderful Life. They showed it Christmas time. Well, I lived the story. People came out of the woodwork to help me out. I had no idea that we had love and caring in the community. And I knew some guys liked us, they hung out there. But I was overwhelmed with the outpouring of support. And it was attorneys coming to me going, hey, listen, we'll do attorney work for you pro bono, okay? Just what can we do? And I had architects. TK, you need drawings? We'll do drawings for you for free. And I had all sorts of people coming going, what can we help you with? I got a big box of die-cut stickers, big box that said, Save the Froghouse. I never ordered them. They came with a letter inside, and it was from a guy up in Washington State again. And he said, TK, you don't remember me? My name was John Lopo, whatever. He goes, and back in the 70s, I tried to be a pro surfer. He goes, and you got me a free wetsuit, and you got me a free surfboard, and you supported me for the whole year, and I never made it out of one heat in a contest. I was the worst damn pro surfer ever in the whole world. But I lived my dream for that whole season, and you helped me, and I love you for doing it. And I have a sticker company now, and I hope you can use these stickers. And I'm going, dude, that'd be $4,000 worth of stickers in that box. So we started handing those babies out. I had another 2 guys came to me and listen, we're in land use people, a business, and what you need to do, TK, is you need to go to the city manager, which I had no idea how the city operates, and I do know too much now, but you go to the city manager, get him to admit that you're a non-intended consequence to this new law, and then tell him you're having trouble filling out this application. This application costs $4,000 to get filled out by a private company, and it's like 22 pages. I'm like, oh my God, I could have graduated high school if I could do all of this. He goes, once he admits that you're an unintended consequence, then get him to assign someone in the building department to help you fill this thing out. And when you get that guy's name, go to his desk and go, I'm having trouble with question number 1. And then tell him, you're having trouble with number 2. And I did exactly that. And I said, hey, I'm having trouble with question number 1. The guy goes, TK, question number 1 is what's your name? I go, well, I'm not good at this. I need help. And he goes, and I go, no, I'm having trouble with number 2. And he goes, okay, listen, I get it. He says, you come back in 3 or 4 hours, I'll have this thing filled out, and it'll be okayed because I'm the one that inspects these and okays them. And I thank you very much. I showed back and saved $4,000 right there. Then I went to lunch with the people that are on the planning commission, which I call the parking commission. It's the only thing they care about is how many cars you can park. And then I went to lunch with the city council people, and I schmoozed and tried to convince, and was successful with it. And it all went down to one day. We had a final vote at the city council, and I had 300 people show up, and a lot of these faces were there, and I thank you very, very much. And it was just, win or lose, my heart was just exploding with all the love I was feeling. It was super good.
It's a wonderful life.
It's a wonderful life, just like in the movie. And we were item number 7 on the agenda that night, and they opened up the meeting, and the mayor said, hey, let's move item number 7 to item number 1 and get this out of here. And he looked around and he goes, hey, I can't imagine anybody being in opposition to approving this zone change. And every council member shook their head, said, nope, no opposition. And I had people with speeches, and I had people that had been planning for weeks to speak. And I go, guys, no need to speak. We're going to vote on this thing. They've all said they're voting in our favor. And then one hand went up, and it was an inebriated young lady. And she goes, I feel impelled to say something. I'm going, impaled, okay, great. She walked up, and I'm going, oh, God, please don't say the wrong thing. And she goes, you know what, you could get rid of the Froghouse, but you'll never get rid of people like me. And I'm like going, oh, Lord. I was sitting next to the chief of police, and I'm going, dude, use the gun and shoot her. Just, will you shoot her right? No, use the gun. And Bob Hurley was sitting there, tells me, TK, go pull her off. And I took his advice. I went up and put my arm. I said, hey, thank you for the support, young lady. And I walked her away. And I go, hey, we have nothing else to say, guys. Let's get the vote. And they voted, and it was the beginning of the successful end of the drama. It took another year to get through Coastal Commission, but they didn't threaten me like the city was a threat. The whole time I was going through this thing, I had people coming in and going, TK, here's what the city's trying to do. They want to redevelop this into town. They want to get rid of all these crappy-looking businesses like yours, and then they're going to build nice stuff and make big money with it. And who knows who's telling the truth. But when it was all said and done, the city was not trying to do that to us. Anyway, I got extra wrinkles, extra gray hair, and
but the people came through for you, and
the people came through. People came through.
Yeah.
I was so stoked. I was so stoked.
You've obviously had a lasting impression on people. You've made some great relationships. But how important have relationships been to you in business and just sort of in your career?
Well, I'm not sure how you pose the question, but the people that work with me know this, and it's all about people relationship. It's all about the relationship with the customer. And gosh, we get to see so many wonderful stories. We get parents bring in their kids that their parents had brought them in. We got 3 and 4 generations of people in there that been coming to our shop alone, and we. Gosh, I love them all. I know the guys that work there realize too, I go out of my way to try to help other people. You know what? When you've got as much as I've got, and we've got as much love as I got, it's great to be able to pass it along, And I pass it along when I can.
And you've got some long relationships there too at the Froghouse, right? You've got some of the guys that have been there for a long time. Who's your longest running employee?
What is his name? I think, is that Zach? No, the longest employee would be Beho. Where are you, Beho?
Yeah, Beho.
There he is. There he is.
How many years have you been there at the Froghouse? Couple months?
Couple months. I think it's probably I was going to say 38, 39 years, something like that. In fact, I think he might have been the first employee I hired when I was the owner at the Froghouse.
That's amazing.
And I didn't want him. I wanted his brother. I wanted his brother Glennie, who's much taller than Bejo. And I had Glennie. I called Glennie in to offer him a job, and Glennie already had a job. And he goes, "Hey, listen, you can hire my brother Mikey." I go, "Well, do I know him?" "Well, no, I'll send him in." And he came in, and he had hair down to here. And in our interview, I asked him one important question. I said, "Do you smoke pot?" And he goes, "No, I do not." And he was such a liar. And such a liar. But I hired him, and he's been like a trusted employee ever since. Amazing. This guy is 100% trustworthy. You know what, Mikey? Thank you.
So, I mean, it takes a team. Obviously, it takes a team.
But I just want to say right off that when I'm not there, I know that Mikey is going to keep the atmosphere upbeat and happy, and it's going to keep things the way it should be run when I'm not there. And that's one of the big values he brings to the place. He keeps everything up on the upbeat, and that's really important.
Enforcing the culture.
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
Hey, so you're wearing a lot of hats, though. I mean, like I said, you're the greeter, you're the head of customer service, of finance, of operations. You ever get exhausted?
Do I ever get what?
Exhausted.
Oh, exhausted.
It's a lot of work.
I get exhausted, Linda? I'd probably get exhausted.
Because you don't seem like it. I mean, you've always got a lot of energy.
I have a lot of energy. I have a lot of energy.
But do you come home and you're just like,
well, if something's going rough, during those years or those times with the city problem, I was probably coming home pretty grumpy and unhappy. But generally, no, I don't come home unhappy at all. You know what? When I go to bed at night, some people have trouble falling asleep or sleeping. When I'm in bed, it's 2-3 minutes, I am out. And I don't wake up until I gotta pee. I don't wake up until I gotta pee. But I sleep like a rock all night long.
That's a good sign. That's a good sign, though.
Oh, it's a good deal.
Where'd you learn this? Did you go to school?
I went to school. Oh, you mean college?
Yeah, college. You did some college.
Yeah, I did. I did like 7 years plus of college, but I think I have 278 units of a 1.85 grade point average, which is a high D. That's a high D.
Which is passing.
Which is passing, but you can't get a degree unless you get a 2.0. But you know what? When I got out of high school in 1967, the Vietnam War was raging, and they were taking anyone that got out of high school into the war. I didn't want to go, and so I went straight to college that summer. And during the war, if you kept a 2.0 average and 12 and a half units, you didn't have to go to Vietnam. And once a semester, you could go below 2.0, and they give you one semester to bring it back up. So I'd go one semester 2.1, and then the next semester I'd go 1.1, and then the next semester I'd go to 2.2, then I'd come back at a 1.3, and just up and down the whole time. And I did that for 7 years. And then they finally had a lottery where they put your birthday on a ping pong ball and pull it out. And I pulled a good number, and I didn't have to go to war. So I feel bad that I didn't stand up for the country, but I guarantee that had the war come to the Newport Beach shores, I would fight and die for the country. I'm a patriot for sure.
Yeah.
In fact, around my house, we always say I send my sister to Vietnam, because I had a 1-year younger sister that went to Vietnam 3 times with Bob Hope as a singer-dancer in the Bob Hope show. We go, okay, we just sent our sister over to the war. But I did go to college a long, long time. And even making those horrible grades, I learned some things along the way.
Yeah.
I learned some things. It was good.
Well, that's become obvious.
I learned how to tap a keg. That was good.
Hey, I'm looking at the sign, but you learned how to win surf contests. You guys have won the West Coast Board Riders contest, I think, a couple times.
Well, now that's not just the Froghouse by any means. That's not the Froghouse by any means. We may have a rider or two involved, but that's Newport Beach in itself.
Well, and this is a community event. Quick little plug for the West Coast Board Riders competition coming up on Friday the 1st. Sport of Kings event, Southside Huntington Beach. will any of your riders be participating in the event?
Well, you know what? I don't make up the roster on who it is, but we have some guys that are worth competing in there, and we probably will have a rider or two in there, but mostly it's a citywide thing, and it is a really fun event. It's a city against city. We got very lucky in the first round to beat Huntington Beach, and we'll see if it ever happens again. But we have some good surfers. You know that in Newport Beach. We have some good guys, no doubt.
So I love how much you love surfing. It's so inspiring. But when you're not surfing, what else do you love? What are you pursuing in your own time?
Oh, in my own time, you know what? It's a lot of it's about family. You know, I got married. I met this wonderful Linda girl, by the way. I was talking about my early days. I was driving the high school bus at Marina High School, and Linda here rode on that bus.
So you were a bus driver?
I was a bus driver. Have you guys...
Picking up on... Was Linda a student?
Only on the best-looking one. Only on the very
getting weirder.
one. Only on the tallest, thinnest, most beautiful one. But... I could drive the bus in the morning, work at the Froghouse during the day, and then put in 2 hours in the afternoon. It was a great job. But that's where I met my wife. That was wonderful. I forgot what the original question was.
Well, we might have to pick up on that one on part 2.
What is important to me?
Yeah.
My wife and I fell in love with my wife. We were married 8 years, and we had our first child. And it was my son Dancin over there, who I dearly love. And family's the most important thing for me, but when he was born, I was taken aback. I wasn't really important in the house anymore, and I wasn't getting fed well, and I wasn't getting slept at night, and I wasn't real happy at all. And the wife was doing a great job being a mother, which she is an amazing, great mother. But we go to the 6-week baby well checkup and mommy checkup, and Mommy's checks out good, and baby checks out good, and doctor goes, TK, how are you getting along? I go, doctor, I'm thinking about murdering the baby. And she goes, what? And I go, I don't get any sleep. I don't get fed well. I'm not number one around here anymore. I'm just stressed out. And the doctor goes, TK, listen, these are real normal feelings to have. He goes, but it's whack to admit them to anybody. You should never say that to somebody. I go, well, you know, we had the baby born at home in the back bedroom. There's no paperwork. I could murder the baby, put him in the trash. No one would know. But if I tell people, then I won't be able to pull off the perfect crime. And so it's kind of a defense to be. And my wife recognized my cry for help, my twisted plea for help, and required that I start going to college courses on parenting. And I started going to Mommy and Me classes and juvenile parenting classes, and I broke a lot of sex barriers in the college ranks, because in 1980, 81, was it? These were women-only classes, and I go, wait a minute, you can't tell me I can't go in here as a man, and I'd be the only man with 28 other beautiful women, and people go, gee, TK, you're really some father. I go, yeah, I just toe the road, you know, I just have to, whatever it takes. Oh, you're so sensitive. You're coming to parenting class. Yeah, I want to murder the kid. But at her insisting and her leadership, I learned how to have a little bit of skills with the little baby, and my world switched 180 degrees to where family is no doubt the most important thing in my entire world is family. Yeah. If my kids were playing in the street and a bus was coming down the road, I would gladly throw my wife under that bus to save those kids. No, it's family's the only thing I've got. It's my love. It's gosh, any of you guys that have the family, you know what I'm talking about, and any of you that don't have it yet, believe me, it's coming. Look at this guy holding a little one back here, man. He's on the journey.
TK, what did you think you were going to be when you grew up?
When I grew up, what was I going to be? You find this hard to believe, but anything I wanted. I always figured I was going to be whatever I wanted.
That doesn't surprise me.
No, I mean, I always figured that. But I couldn't. I remember when I was working at the Froghouse early on, I had 2 roommates that we were about 8-year roommates. People thought we were gay. And we were sitting around talking about what we're going to be when we grow up. And I was always going to own the Froghouse. That's what I was always going to do. That was, post high school or.
That answers my next question, because I said, have you accomplished what you set out to do?
In many, many ways I have, and that's really fulfilling. In many, many ways I've accomplished what I've set out to do. There's also some things that I haven't accomplished and I could be better at. There's a lot of things I could be. I could be a better husband for sure. I get grumpy with the wife sometimes. She gets upset. How is it that on the phone you're so friendly to that person you don't know, then you hang up and you're short with me? I mean, that's not right. And we take liberties with those that are close with us sometimes because of the familiarity that we have, But deep inside, my heart is all about the family and all of that.
How about, so beyond family, professionally, what are you most proud of?
What am I most proud professionally? What am I most proud of professionally? I get to be honest, and I'm proud of that. And I'm proud of the way I never cheated a customer ever. I never cheated a customer. I'm proud of that. And I very often will lose, the guys working to see it, I will lose money to a customer that's got it all wrong and doesn't deserve it at all. But for one, it does my heart well to have the guy walk out of there feeling good that he didn't get cheated. And then something I tell the employees all the time, if a guy walks out of my shop happy, he might tell somebody, hey, the guys out of the Froghouse treated me right.
Yeah.
You ought to give those guys a try. Maybe he'll do that. But if a guy walks out of my shop angry, he's going to tell the next 10 people he runs into, those guys screwed me down there. That place sucks. They screwed me down there. I can't allow 10 people to hear that. And I will lose money, and I do it real often. These guys see it. I had a guy yesterday came in. It was just yesterday. Came in and goes, I'm here to pick up my wetsuit that we were repairing. And the lady called me and said she can't repair it. I go, oh, I'm sorry. We'll hunt it up. And he goes, and by the way, I paid $35 to have it repaired. And I want my $35 back. And I go, we'd never make anybody pay in advance to get their wetsuit repaired. I go, why would you pay in advance? He goes, you told me I had to, and it's written on my ticket. And he shows me his ticket in somebody's handwriting, not mine, or anyone working at the shop. It says, paid in full, $35. And I went to the register and got out $35 and gave it to him, and he walked out the door. And every guy working there went, TK, that guy did not pay $35 to get that suit. And I go, I understand that completely, but he's not going to be telling the next 10 guys you run into that the Froghouse cheated him. That's $3.50 per guy. That's really worth not having that bad ill will, spread around.
Yeah.
But that's the way you got to do it. And then, does it ruin my day and make me angry? No, it actually, I was happy and buoyed the rest of the day going, you know what? There's been times when I've worked here that $35 would have been really important and would have really made a big difference in my world. But $35 today doesn't mean too much to me at all.
Yeah.
I can get along without $35, and that's big in itself, Hey, is this being boring yet?
No way. Okay, so but I got a couple. So now what I like to do is we're going to kind of turn the corner and go. So speaking of losing money and giving money away, has it always been good times? Has it always been an uphill ride, or what are some of the down times that you've had?
Oh, anytime you're in business, there are going to be up times and down times. The first one that comes to my mind is when I first bought that place, and I'd been managing it for a couple of years. I've been running that place for a couple of years, and then I bought it, and the owner stepped out, and I realized I had been running that place. I'd been doing a lot, but I hadn't been running it all. And I had trouble sleeping for some months. And I remember getting zits on my arms from sweating and leaning on the counter and stressing out because I hadn't been doing any of the interaction with the state or the federal government or the city itself. I've been doing purchasing and selling. I hadn't been doing much of paying the debts either. And all of that was overwhelming, way more heavy than I'd ever thought it would be going in. But that only lasted for a few months, and I adjusted and went forward. And by the way, back in those days, we would actually have sales days that were 0 sometimes too. I mean, you sit there the whole day and sell 0. Or worse, a guy might come in and ask for a refund.
Do you ever feel like you're failing, or you felt like closing up shop, or it was always like charged through?
I can't think I ever thought about closing it. I never, ever was there a thought of me closing it. There has been times where I thought maybe finances might close it, you know, but not because I closed it. Maybe everyone in the industry went, hey, we ain't selling that guy anything more. He owes so much money, we're pulling the plug. And thank God that never happened. But never, ever did it, that I can think of, did I go, I'm going to close this thing down and take another job. No, I don't think that ever happened. A couple of monumental downturns for us. You know, one that you guys, some of you lived through was, remember the big oil spill in Huntington? The tanker is filling up, transferring crude oil from the tanker onto the land-based, you know, those big tanks behind the power plant there. And the hose broke, and I don't know how many hundreds of thousands or millions of barrels of oil spilled on the beach. And they closed the beach from north of Seal Beach to, you know, south of Newport Beach. You weren't allowed to walk on the beach, let alone go in the water. And of course, it wasn't very congenial for business. We couldn't sell anything. And we'd go out surfing, and there's huge, thick oil piles on the water, and we'd still go out and surf in it. Us guys that had to go surfing every day. In fact, it kept the water really glassy. That was kind of good. But boy, the finances went downhill, and we couldn't pay. You know, there's big money goes on in insurance, and there's money of employees, although we cut employees down to a minimum. But we went through months and months, probably 5 or 6, 7, 8 months of just doing 10% of the business we should be doing.
Wow.
And that was real threatening. I always figured there would be a light at the end of that tunnel, though, and we'd come back. And the oil companies did bring professional liars in to tell us that they were going to pay us money for all our losses. And we put a claim in for lost money. And it took 7 years, I think it was. One day I got a letter in the mail 7 years later, and things had gotten good, and we'd paid our bills, and we were back on top, and we were rolling along pretty good. And this letter came from the oil company. And I told the boy, I don't know, is anybody here working that day the letter came? I'm like, Mikey probably was. I go, this letter should have $14,000 in it, which was a lot of money back then.
Yeah.
And I'm going, this is from the oil company. And I'm going, anything less than $14,000 is a ripoff. It ought to have. And I opened that baby up, and it had $14,000 in it. And
really?
I was like going, yeah, we're back on top, guys.
It's a wonderful life.
It's a wonderful life. That works
So
good.
let me ask you this. I'm going to start to tone it down. Now we're going to come into the final section here. We're coming into a landing. I want to ask you a few personal questions.
We are coming into a landing, and
Well,
we've blown
somewhat.
up 2.5 hours of me gibbering.
So you're 69, right?
Right.
Yep. What's the future of the Froghouse look like as you kind of come into your sunset years? Do you have sunset years? You know, what's next for the Froghouse? What's next for TK?
You know, I've got good answers for every one of these questions he asks all night long until you get to this one. And I'm not very good at it. For one reason, I don't want to ever go anywhere. My accountant has told me, TK, you don't need to work anymore. My wife has gone, why are you still doing this? I'm sick and tired of doing handwritten receipts every stinking night. In fact, she quits about 3 times a month. I quit this job. I'm like, I'll hire someone else. No one else is going to do this. But I've not ever had any intention of, you know, never have I wanted to go anywhere else. I go surfing 5 days a week, 6 days a week. I hang out with guys that I enjoy and love, and we joke and banter and have a great time all day long. And I interact with customers that I really, truly love, an occasional one that I can't stand. But I've not done a good job of planning an exit. I wouldn't break my heart if I died of a heart attack there tomorrow and they said, well, the place is closed down because, well, now Travis here that has been working through the summer because he's been school teaching, he left me and that was a low point because he's a very good employee that does everything really well and one of the guys that comes in there that could actually run that place and make it happen. And I go, hey, would you have any interest in taking this place over, just kind of putting feelers out? And he's going, TK, it can't operate the way you operate it once you're gone. And there's some truth to that. For one thing, if I sell it to somebody, they're going to have to pay me rent. And there goes that advantage of being able to go down to zero rent if things are horrible. And also, I run it kind of crazy and stupid. It's hard to find someone that's willing to lose that $35. That customer just like, here's $35. Walk on down the road, buddy.
You've got some long relationships there too at the Froghouse, right? You've got some of the guys that have been there for a long time. Who's your longest running employee?
What is his name? I think, is that Zach? No, the longest employee would be Beho. Where are you, Beho?
Yeah, Beho.
There he is. There he is.
Beho, how many years have you been there at the Froghouse? Couple months?
Couple months. I think it's probably, I was going to say 38, 39 years, something like that. In fact, I think he might have been the first employee I hired when I was the owner at the Froghouse.
That's amazing.
And I didn't want him. I wanted his brother. Glennie, who's much taller than Beho. And I had Glennie, I called Glennie in to offer him a job, and Glennie already had a job, and he goes, hey, listen, you can hire my brother Mikey. I go, well, do I know him? Well, no, I'll send him in. And he came in, and he had hair down to here, and in our interview, I asked him one important question. I said, do you smoke pot? And he goes, no, I do not. And he was such a liar, and such a liar. But I hired him, and he's been like a trusted employee ever since. Amazing. This guy is 100% trustworthy. You know what, Mikey? Thank you.
So, I mean, it takes a team. Obviously, it takes a team.
But I just want to say right off that when I'm not there, I know that Mikey is going to keep the atmosphere upbeat and happy, and it's going to keep things the way it should be run when I'm not there. And that's one of the big values he brings to the place. He keeps everything up on the upbeat, and that's really important.
Enforcing the culture.
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
Hey, so you're wearing a lot of hats, though. I mean, like I said, you're the greeter, you're the head of customer service, of finance, of operations. You ever get exhausted?
Do I ever get what?
Exhausted.
Oh, exhausted.
It's a lot of work.
I get exhausted, Linda? I'd probably get exhausted.
Because you don't seem like it. I mean, you've always got a lot of energy.
I have a lot of energy.
Yeah,
I have a lot of energy.
But do you come home and you're just like,
oh, well, if something's going rough, during those years or those times with the city problem, I was probably coming home pretty grumpy and unhappy. But generally, no, I don't come home unhappy at all. You know what? When I go to bed at night, some people have trouble falling asleep or sleeping. When I'm in bed, it's 2-3 minutes, I am out. And I don't wake up until I gotta pee. I don't wake up until I gotta pee. But I sleep like a rock all night long.
That's a good sign. That's a good sign, though.
Oh, it's a good deal.
Where'd you learn this? Did you go to school?
I went to school. Oh, you mean college?
Yeah, college. You did some college.
Yeah, I did. I did like 7 years plus of college, but I think I have 278 units of a 1.85 grade point average, which is a high D. That's a high D.
Which is passing.
Which is passing, but you can't get a degree unless you get a 2.0. But you know what? When I got out of high school in 1967, the Vietnam War was raging, and they were taking anyone that got out of high school into the war. I didn't want to go, and so I went straight to college that summer. And during the war, if you kept a 2.0 average and 12 and a half units, you didn't have to go to Vietnam. And once a semester, you could go below 2.0, and they give you one semester to bring it back up. So I'd go one semester 2.1, and then the next semester I'd go 1.1, and then the next semester I'd go to 2.2, then I'd come back at a 1.3, and just up and down the whole time, and I did that for 7 years. And then they finally had a lottery where they put your birthday on a ping pong ball and pull it out. And I pulled a good number, and I didn't have to go to war. So I feel bad that I didn't stand up for the country, but I guarantee that had the war come to the Newport Beach shores, I would fight and die for the country. I'm a patriot for sure.
Yeah.
In fact, around my house, we always say I send my sister to Vietnam because I had a 1-year younger sister that went to Vietnam 3 times with Bob Hope as a singer-dancer in the Bob Hope show. We go,
Wow.
okay, we just sent our sister over to the war. But I did go to college a long, long time. And even making those horrible grades, I learned some things along the way.
Yeah.
I learned some things. It was good.
Well, that's become obvious.
I learned how to tap a keg. That was good.
Hey, I'm looking at the sign, but you learned how to win surf contests. You guys have won the West Coast Board Riders contest, I think, a couple times.
Well, now that's not just the Froghouse by any means. That's not the Froghouse by any means. We may have a rider or two involved, but that's the Newport Beach in itself.
Well, and this is a community event. Quick little plug for the West Coast Board Riders competition coming up on Friday the 1st. The Sport of Kings event, Southside Huntington Beach. Will any of your riders be participating in the event?
Well, you know what? I don't make up the roster on who it is, but we have some guys that are worth competing in there, and we probably will have a rider or two in there, but mostly it's a citywide thing, and it is a really fun event. It's a city against city. We got very lucky in the first round to beat Huntington Beach, and we'll see if it ever happens again. But we have some good surfers. You know that in Newport Beach. We have some good guys, no doubt.
I love how much you love surfing. It's so inspiring. But when you're not surfing, what else do you love? What are you pursuing in your own time?
Oh, in my own time, you know what? It's a lot of it's about family. You know, I got married. I met this wonderful Linda girl, by the way. I was talking about my early days. I was driving the high school bus at Marina High School, and Linda here rode on that bus.
So you were a bus driver?
I was a bus driver. Have you guys
picking up on? Was Linda a student?
Only on the best looking one.
Only on the very best
weirder. Only on the tallest, thinnest, most beautiful one. But I could drive the bus in the morning, work at the Froghouse during the day, and then put in 2 hours in the afternoon. It was a great job. But that's where I met my wife. And that was wonderful. I forgot what the original question was.
Well, we might have to pick on that one on part 2.
What is important to me?
Yeah.
My wife and I fell in love with my wife. We were married 8 years, and we had our first child. And it was my son Dancin over there, who I dearly love. And family's the most important thing for me, but when he was born, I was taken aback. I wasn't really important in the house anymore, and I wasn't getting fed well, and I wasn't getting slept at night, and I wasn't real happy at all. And the wife was doing a great job being a mother, which she is an amazing, great mother. But we go to the 6-week baby well checkup and mommy checkup, and Mommy's checks out good and baby checks out good, and doctor goes, TK, how are you getting along? I go, doctor, I'm thinking about murdering the baby. And she goes, what? And I go, I don't get any sleep. I don't get fed well. I'm not number one around here anymore. I'm just stressed out. And the doctor goes, TK, listen, these are real normal feelings to have. He goes, but it's whack to admit them to anybody. You should never say that to somebody. I go, well, you know, we had the baby born at home in the back bedroom. There's no paperwork. I could murder the baby, put him in the trash. No one would know. But if I tell people, then I won't be able to pull off the perfect crime. And so it's kind of a defense to me. And my wife recognized my cry for help, my twisted plea for help, and required that I start going to college courses on parenting. And I started going to Mommy and Me classes and juvenile parenting classes, and I broke a lot of sex barriers in the college ranks, because in 1980, 81 was it, these were women-only classes, and I go, wait a minute, you can't tell me I can't go in here as a man, and I'd be the only man with 28 other beautiful women, and people go, gee, TK, you're really some father. I go, yeah, I just toe the road, you know, I just have to, whatever it takes. Oh, you're so sensitive. You're coming to parenting class. Yeah, I want to murder the kid. But at her insisting and her leadership, I learned how to have a little bit of skills with the little baby. And And my world switched 180 degrees to where family is no doubt the most important thing in my entire world is family. If my kids were playing in the street and a bus was coming down the road, I would gladly throw my wife under that bus to save those kids. No, it's family's the only thing I've got. It's my love. Gosh, any of you guys that have the family, you know what I'm talking about. And any of you that don't have it yet, believe me, it's coming. Look at this guy holding a little one back here, man. He's on the journey.
TK, what did you think you were going to be when you grew up?
When I grew up, what was I going to be? You find this hard to believe, but anything I wanted. I always figured I was going to be whatever I wanted.
That doesn't surprise me.
No, I mean, I always figured that. But I couldn't. I remember when I was working at the Froghouse early on, I had 2 roommates that we were about 8-year roommates. People thought we were gay. And we were sitting around talking about what we're going to be when we grow up. And I was always going to own the Froghouse. That's what I was always going to do. That was, post high school.
That answers my next question, because I said, have you accomplished what you set out to do?
In many, many ways I have, and that's really fulfilling. In many, many ways I've accomplished what I've set out to do. There's also some things that I haven't accomplished and I could be better at. There's a lot of things I could be. I could be a better husband for sure. I get grumpy with the wife sometimes. She gets upset. How is it that on the phone you're so friendly with that person you don't know that you hang up and you're short with me? I mean, that's not right. And we take liberties with those that are close with us sometimes because of the familiarity that we have, But deep inside, my heart is all about the family and all of that.
How about, so beyond family, professionally, what are you most proud of?
What am I most proud professionally? What am I most proud of professionally? I get to be honest, and I'm proud of that. And I'm proud of the way I never cheated a customer, ever. I never cheated a customer. I'm proud of that. And I very often will lose, the guys working to see it, I will lose money to a customer that's got it all wrong and doesn't deserve it at all. But for one, it does my heart well to have the guy walk out of there feeling good that he didn't get cheated. And then something I tell the employees all the time, if a guy walks out of my shop happy, he might tell somebody, hey, the guys out of the Froghouse treated me right.
Yeah.
You ought to give those guys a try. Maybe he'll do that. But if a guy walks out of my shop angry, he's going to tell the next 10 people he runs into, those guys screwed me down there. That place sucks. They screwed me down there. I can't allow 10 people to hear that. And I will lose money, and I do it real often. These guys see it. I had a guy yesterday came in. It was just yesterday. Came in and goes, I'm here to pick up my wetsuit that we were repairing, and the lady called me and said she can't repair it. I go, oh, I'm sorry. We'll hunt it up. And he goes, and by the way, I paid $35 to have it repaired. I want my $35 back. And I go, we never make anybody pay in advance to get their wetsuit repaired. I go, why would you pay in advance? He goes, you told me I had to, and it's written on my ticket. And he shows me his ticket in somebody's handwriting, not mine or anyone working at the shop. It says, paid in full, $35. And I went to the register and got out $35 and gave it to him, and he walked out the door. And every guy working there went, TK, that guy did not pay $35 to get that suit. And I go, I understand that completely, but he's not going to be telling the next 10 guys you run into that the Froghouse cheated him. That's $3.50 per guy. That's really worth not having that bad ill will, spread around.
Yeah.
But that's the way you got to do it. And then does it ruin my day and make me angry? No, it actually, I was happy and buoyed the rest of the day going, you know what? There's been times when I've worked here that $35 would have been really important and would have really made a big difference in my world. But $35 today doesn't mean too much to me at all.
Yeah.
I can get along without $35, and that's big in itself, Hey, is this being boring yet?
No way.